this'll have to do. Let's talk about 1992 in Japan. Japan is in a state of economic disrepair. Amid recession, political tensions are high, election scandals lead to widespread distrust in the Diet, with a mere 50.7% of civilians even bothering to vote in the general election. Economic growth had dwindled to a projected 1.5%. George Bush makes the long trek to Japan just to vomit in the Prime Minister's lap. But not all hope is lost. There's a glimmer, a little light at the end of the tunnel. September 27th, Enix Corporation releases Dragon Quest V for the SNES. Oh god. The latest addition to the beloved JRPG franchise, and the second entry in what would become the Zenithian trilogy. Long-term fans of the franchise gather in troves to pick up their copy, eager to dive into the newest edition of the franchise from the mind of creator Yuji Horii. The game is a shining success, later becoming one, if not the most beloved game in the Dragon Quest franchise, probably one of the most beloved games ever released in Japan. It is remade twice and released on multiple platforms, later coming to the Nintendo DS in 2009, and copies of that game now can go for up to €600, and they're pretty much impossible to find. I have a copy, just saying. Yeah, I need to put this back. There. I'm sorry. And then on February 13th, 2019, Yuji Horii makes a surprising announcement. A film adaptation of Dragon Quest V, almost 30 years after the game's initial release. The film is released on August 2nd in Japan, and then later English dubbed and released to Netflix internationally on February 13th, 2020. This film was going to have it all. Writing and direction from Takeshi Yamazaki, and further direction from Stand By Me Doraemon producer Ryuichi Yagi, as well as Makoto Hanafusa. It's going to have the soundtrack of classic Dragon Quest music, performed by the Tokyo Metropolitan Symphony Orchestra, and it was going to have Yuri Lowenthal. And it sucked! I mean, it grossed pretty well, the reviews tend to be generally positive, and it's visually stunning, and it was so amazing after all these years to get a film adaptation of a Dragon Quest game. But let's call a spade here. And let me be clear, I really do love this movie. I've seen it probably like 20 times now, and it's my go-to comfort film. But it does kind of suck, and it gets worse every time I watch it. I'm just going to get a mosey on and dive into why Dragon Quest Your Story is kind of a mess. My makeup is withering away, and I am squeezed into this crevice because I wanted to have the display on display, and I wanted to give face card, but nothing is cooperating with me tonight. And my voice is going. Oh god. We open on a monologue from an unobserved narrator briefly detailing the history of the Zenithians and how they once sealed away the evil Nimzo behind the gates of Nadiria. The narrator also expresses the looming threat of these gates opening once again. The only way to shut Nimzo back to Nadiria would be through the use of a sword imbued with a holy power that can only be wielded by a heavenly hero, who carries the blood of the Zenithians. The next section of this opening exposition consists of clips from the original Dragon Quest V game, showing the birth of our protagonist Luca and how his mother Mada was kidnapped by monsters shortly after giving birth. This led to Luca and his father Pancras travelling the world in search of her. On this journey, Luca befriends Nera, the shy daughter of the wealthy Rodrigo Briscoletti, Bianca, a headstrong girl who guides Luca through his first battles, defeating the evil spirits at up to 10 towers, which leads to Luca adopting a young saber cat named Percy. Pancras continues to train Luca throughout their travels, and they often return to home in Wheelbrook, where their friend Sancho keeps house while they're away, and he cries a lot. One day, when Luca is out playing with Percy, a strange, mysterious man approaches him. It appears that despite years of travelling and training, Luca's father never taught him the merits of stranger danger. Without even an introduction, the stranger asks if he can look at Luca's big orb. The orb was dropped by an evil spirit Luca and Bianca fought at up to 10 towers. The two talk in silence before Pancras... Why did I write that? Two talk in silence? That doesn't make any sense. The two converse before Pancras appears calling for Luca as they have to depart on another journey to a town called Coburg. Here Luca makes sort of friends with Prince Harry, not that one. Harry is kidnapped by monsters shortly after, We quickly cut to Pancras in battle with two monsters in attempt to protect Luca and Green Lord Farquaad, but everything goes south when our main antagonist, Ladja, appears. Ladja takes Luca and threatens to kill him if Pancras does not let his goons beat him up. Pancras complies, and he is beaten and then burnt alive in front of his 8-year-old son. Oh my god. Luca is understandably hysterical, and Ladja tells him he is enslaving him and Harry until their deaths. He also destroys Luca's pretty orb. Aww. The film cuts to Luca waking up in a cave 10 years later, following another trauma-induced nightmare of his father's death. And this is where the movie actually begins. I'm going to segue for a moment to talk about this opening sequence because it's not good. You see, in the video game, these events, they take place over the course of like 10 hours of gameplay. This has been condensed into exactly 8 minutes. I know it's incredibly hard to fit a JRPG length story into a film's length, but I feel like this could have been executed so much better. Firstly, if you haven't played the game, you're probably super lost at this point and have forgotten half the characters and half the locations that have been covered so far. I've played Dragon Quest V twice and I felt stressed watching this opening. It was like someone sat me down and was like, okay, real quick, this is everyone, here are all the characters, here's the relationship with the characters, here's all of Luca's trauma, good luck. And it's sloppy. It's not good. I think there should have been more of a show don't tell element here. I'm not a script writer. I don't know what truly would have been the best decision. I just feel like this was lazy. But I'm getting sidetracked, so let's return to the plot. Harry and Luca talk about how it's been a full 10 years since they've become slaves and how they really should find an escape route at this stage. While carrying out work, another inmate overhears their discussion and jokes that the only way out of this place is in a barrel because that is how they dispose of dead inmates. Harry is delighted by this information and hatches a plan where him and Luca can pretend to be dead so they can escape in a barrel. The plan works with a little bit of tribulation, and ultimately Harry and Luca are able to escape. They land themselves in the carriage of an old man travelling home. This man hides them away in his pub, and later in the night he gives them warm drinks and tells them that his name is Dr. Agin. I can't critique this part because it's in the game, and what's worse is the pun didn't actually register with me until a certain part in the game that I rather not say because I would lose a lot of respect. Dr. Agin explains that he opened his pub so he can spy on Mount Azimuth, the mountain where the slaves are kept. He wants to figure out what Ladja's plan is. He theorizes that the plan is to open the gates of Naderia and free Nimzo, which is, yeah, that's the plan. The next day, Dr. Agin arranges transport for Harry and Luca to Little Haven, where they stow away on a boat back to Coburg. Harry reconnects with the old guard and endeavours to tell his father of Ladja's plan. Harry asks Luca to join him, but he has other plans.
The last words he ever said, I think he was trying to tell me something very important.
About your mother, wasn't it?
Yeah, think so.
Is he serious? Am I losing my mind?
My mother, she's still alive. You need to find her.
I think he was trying to tell me something very important.
Was Pancras not clear enough? Oh, what on earth could he have meant by that? Harry and Luca sadly part ways, and Luca heads back to Wheelbrook, to his childhood home. Here he discovers a secret basement and a diary left behind by his father, detailing that Luca's mother, Mada, was kidnapped because she is actually a descendant of the Zenithians, and she is likely still alive somewhere on Mount Azimuth, as Ladja needs her Zenithian spell to open the gates of Naderia. He also reveals that he believes that Luca is in fact the heavenly hero. Luca is shocked by this and leaves the basement, reuniting with Sancho, who is still living in the house. Sancho cries. Over a meal, they discuss the diary's revelations, and Sancho convinces Luca that as the heavenly hero, he must set out to find his mother and stop Ladja's plan. Wait, didn't they say Mada gets kidnapped right after Luca's birth? What the hell is in Zenithian breast milk? Anyway, now it's time for the personal development and training montage. During the sequence, we get a bit of fan service with references to things in the Dragon Quest series, such as the metal slimes and the goodie bags. This is also where Luca meets Gertrude, a blue slime that has been following him on his travels. Luca recruits him in reference to the monster recruitment system in Dragon Quest V. Random fun fact, this feature actually is what inspired the Pokemon series. The more you know. That was cringe. Ew. Luca and Gertrude encounter an angry saber cat in a cave and run away from him, only to discover that the saber cat is actually Luca's long-lost cat Percy. This part is just adorable. I love it. With a party of 3, you wind up in Mostro Ferrato, where the town is in shambles thanks to the wrath of Bjorn, a big, bad Bowsy. Luca sees an ad offering a large reward to anyone that can take him down. Mostro Ferrato is home to Rodrigo Briscoletti and his daughter Nera, who you see for all of 5 seconds in the opening of this movie. But if you haven't played the game, you're just expected to accept here that Luca and Nera have such a close relationship that Nera breaks down crying upon realizing that Luca isn't actually dead. The game doesn't exactly do a stand-up job either in convincing the player of this pair's connection, but I'm going to speak on that in another video. Briscoletti is also convinced that Luca is the heavenly hero and goes to fetch the Zenithian sword, which he's keeping in I don't know, a safe somewhere. And he states that if Luca is in fact the hero, he should be able to unsheath the sword. But yeah, Bjorn's taken the sword too. Luca initially wants nothing to do with this crack, but upon learning that if he defeats Bjorn, he's entitled to Nera's hand in marriage, he bolts for Bjorn's lair and gets his ass handed to him. What blue-haired girls do to a man. Luca and Percy collapse from their wounds at a local pub, but they are revived with medicinal herbs by a mysterious woman. The woman is revealed to be Bianca, who helped you defeat the ghosts at Upton Towers all those years ago. Bianca insists on helping you defeat Bjorn, and you both return to his lair together. This leads to probably my favourite part in the whole movie. It's exactly everything I wanted from a Dragon Quest movie. The combat is smooth, the interaction and the banter between Bianca and Luca is just nice and quick and witty. The best part of this is when Luca actually gets the Zenithian sword and he does this triumphant speech and he goes to unsheath the sword and he can't. He's not the hero. I love this. It's canonical with the game, of course, but I actually prefer how they do this in the movie. This leaves Luca in a position where he must take on Bjorn now, knowing that he's not special. There is nothing special about him. He is not the hero. He's not noble. He's just a guy, and he has to take on this beast. And in the end, he succeeds. Using his brains and teamwork, they're able to outsmart and subdue Bjorn. This whole sequence is just... I love it. The gang return to town and Bianca helps Luca plan his official proposal to Nera. This scene is painfully cringe.
Will you marry me, please?
But Nera accepts the proposal, and we get this really sad shot of Bianca walking away with tears in her eyes. Girl, you haven't seen this guy in 10 years. Be serious. Later that night, Bianca is drinking away her sorrows, and she starts acting pretty pathetic when Luca shows up. Luca is annoyed and heads to his room at the inn, where he is stopped by a mysterious old woman. I think this is actually meant to be a woman modelled off Pamela from Dragon Quest VII, or it could be Madame Luca from Dragon Quest VI. Oh, her name's also Luca. Conspiracy. It doesn't matter. The old lady insists Luca is hiding from his true feelings, and that deep down he might actually be unsure of marrying a girl that he's had exactly 4 conversations with. Luca thinks this is madness, so the lady gives him a potion to drink, which Luca initially disregards. Later that night, Luca cannot sleep and decides to drink the potion the stranger in the hallway of a bar gave him. This is a representation again of Pancras not teaching his damn son anything about stranger danger. Drinking his potion causes a literal glitch in Luca's reality, foreshadowing, and is revealed to him that deep down he has feelings for Bianca. This revelation shocks him, and he makes a decision to end his engagement to Nera. Just like that. Also, I need to mention that during the sequence, Luca says that someone once told him that your true love is the person you can tell anything to, and it's kind of relevant later. Briscoletti is furious that Luca is ending his engagement to Nera, but he gives Luca the Zenithian sword back anyway, so he can continue on his quest for the Heavenly Hero. He also gives Luca the intel that the Zenith dragon lives somewhere in a town at the foot of Mount Azimuth. I wonder who that could be. Luca tells Bianca he broke off his engagement with Nira and proposes to Bianca right then and there, and she accepts. I don't like Luca. Luca sees the old woman from before leaving the pub and chases after her to thank her for helping him realise his true feelings for Bianca. She swiftly moves on, and it is revealed that the old lady was actually Nira the whole time, who says to herself that she couldn't help but notice that Luca had feelings for Bianca and wanted to do the right thing. Nira is a girl's girl, or Nira saw the red flags from a mile away.
She's still my problem, not my man.
We have a brief cutaway here to Mount Azimuth, where it's revealed that Mada, Luca's mother, has sealed herself in a protective bubble that Ladja has spent the last 10 years trying to destroy. He basically just rambles that one day he's gonna pop that bitch and get the spell. It's montage time again, and Bianca is pregnant. Damn. Sancho is also crying again. Bianca gives birth to a baby boy named Alice, and while she is still nursing her newborn child, Luca makes the declaration that the Zenithian sword is acting up, so he has to go away and travel and searching for the Heavenly Hero. Your wife just gave birth. I hate this guy. Oh, Grano, it's a totally different world with a totally different range of cultural norms. I don't care. I'm judging. I feel like I need to reiterate this is like one of my favourite movies. Before Luca can abandon his family, monsters strike the house. The gang start making an escape on sleds, and Bianca gives Alice to Sancho to protect him, and rides off on Percy's back to help Luca. Luca falls down a hole. A sleeping spell is cast on Bianca and Percy, and she's incapacitated. Ladja seems to be impressed with Bianca, and Luca gets out of the hole somehow and tries to intervene, and Ladja turns him into stone and kidnaps Bianca. Back at Mount Azimuth, it is revealed that Bianca is also a descendant of the Zenithians, and Ladja's like, haha, you were adopted. Loser. Does this mean that Bianca and Luca are related? That means they're related, right? Ladja tries to bargain with Bianca to open the gates to Nadiria. Bianca retaliates and Ladja turns her into stone too. And then we have our next time skip. We fast forward 8 years, and Bianca and Luca are just encased in stone the entire time. That's horrifying. This is a PG movie, by the way. Alice and Sancho go into a deep cavern and retrieve Stolo's staff, which is a staff in Dragon Quest games that undoes petrification, and they encounter some gigantes. Alice casts Zoom to teleport himself and Sancho away, but the gigantes can also cast Zoom for some reason. It's bizarre, but I'm kind of nitpicking here. Alice yeets the staff at his father, turning him back to normal. Luca initially doesn't recognise Alice, much to his disappointment, but when Alice takes down the chimera birds, he, for some reason, instantly recognises the swordsmanship, even though Luca could have never trained him because he was turned to stone when Alice was a baby. I'll let them away with this one. The Gigantes appear and disarm Alice, and Luca, without thinking, throws him the Zenithian sword. Upon realising what he has done, Luca tries to stop Alice. However, that's right, the Heavenly Hero is Alice, the power of Zenithian inbreeding. Wait, I just realised Zenithia is probably like a location and not like a family. Bianca and Luca are probably not related. Well, Bianca's adopted, so we don't really know. Anyway, Alice decimates the Gigantes with the Zenithian sword, and Luca is shocked at the revelation that the Heavenly Hero was his son the whole time. And Sancho cries again. Alice and Luca pay a visit to Dr. Agon to ask him where they might find the Zenith dragon.
Who could have ever guessed that Dr. Agon was the Zenith dragon?
Okay, I'm back to loving this movie again. Dr. Agon states that while he would love to help them, he cannot transform into a dragon without his dragon orb, and he lost it at Upton Towers. Ah, it's all coming full circle. Luca kept a piece of the orb that Ladja destroyed, but when Dr. Agon inspects it, discovers that it's actually a fake, but suggests that the gang go to a cave in the mountains to seek fairies that can grant any wish, but they're guarded by robots. Luca comments that this is really random, and Dr. Agon responds with, "That's just how things are this time around." Lazy foreshadowing. Luca, with only Gertrude in tow, undergoes a set of trial in the mountains to seek out the fairies. He defeats the robots, he does a little rocket slime reference with Gertrude to get into the cave, and they fall through a little hole in the ground and they land in the fairy kingdom. That's all you really need to know. The fairy greets the pair and offers to grant them a wish for their courage. Luca wishes that the gates in Naderia be forever closed and his wife and mother be saved. The fairy's like, no, sweetie, doesn't work like that. Sorry. But she does offer to help Luca obtain the original dragon orb by sending him back in time with a fake orb to switch it out before Lodja can destroy it. So that stranger from way back at the start of the movie was actually Luca from the future, if you didn't already cop that by the fact that he looks and has the same hair as Luca. I like how in this revision of the scene it kind of addresses how ridiculous the situation is. Like, Luca says he knew his younger self had an orb because he could smell it, and young Luca is actually pretty apprehensive about showing older Luca the orb, to which Luca responds with, "If I show you my little friend, will you show me your orb?" To which young Luca is like, "That makes you sound more suspicious." But old Luca and young Luca end up bonding over their monster companions, and old Luca randomly throws that, "Don't forget, your true love is the person you can tell anything to," because we need to tie everything together in this scene for some reason. Young Luca shows old Luca the dragon orb. Luca successfully switches the two out. Mission successful. Now with the dragon orb, Dr. Agin can fly the gang to Mount Azimuth and they can free Bianca from her stone self. The family reunites tearfully and they move on quickly to try and save Luca's mother. But on their way, Luca hears the voice of his mother in his head, begging him to turn around. She believes Nimzo has amassed too much power this time around, and the gang will not be strong enough to stop him. She is interrupted by Lodja finally bursting her protective shield, and he then fires attacks at the Zenith dragon. The dragon is overwhelmed by the attacks and tells the gang to go on without him. And that is the beginning and the ending of all dragon activity in the Dragon Quest movie. Luca runs to his mother and holds her dying body. She happily states she's glad to finally see him again, and now she can die in peace, taking the spell that opens the gates to Naderia with her. Luca doesn't have much time to mourn, however, as our final battle has begun. We get a pretty badass scene that showcases a lot of the attacks and spells that appear in the Dragon Quest series. It's a pretty brilliant showcase of the beautiful animation in this movie. I gotta say, I really think they nailed this part. The battle is interrupted by a giant ship landing on the top of the mountain. A ship manned by Prince Harry and an army, coming to repay his debt to Luca. And Bjorn's here too. The battle continues and Lodja grabs Mada's corpse from the battlefield, sending the two monsters that once beat Luca's father to attack Luca, but Luca slices through them almost too easily. Luca confronts Lodja and battle ensues. Lodja remarks that Luca is powerless against him, as he is not the heavenly hero, and he throws the fireball attack that once killed his father. But Luca, now stronger than Pancras ever was, deflects the attack and overpowers Lodja. Or so he thinks. Lodja deflects Luca's sword. He also says, "What a pity" here, which is a fun little reference to Dragon Quest VIII. Luca struggles to break the barrier that Lodja has created. However, when Alice joins him, wielding the Zenithian sword, their joint force shatters the barrier, and Lodja is defeated. But Lodja has one more trick up his sleeve. Using the light that seeps from the gates in Naderia, he is able to extract the power from Mada's corpse. He chants the spell that opens the gates to Naderia, which is Opena il Nimzo. Really? I feel like Lodja could have just tried that as a joke over the past 18 years that he's just been sitting playing fire handball with Mada's bubble. And with that, Lodja dissolves into nothing after finally obtaining his long-term goal. Alice suggests that if he gets close enough to throw the Zenithian sword into the gates, they might still be able to reseal Nimzo before it's too late. Now it's Bjorn's time to shine. Despite having wings, Bjorn just throws Alice, who in turn fires the sword into the gates in Naderia, successfully sealing them for good. It's over. Now the evil is eradicated and everything can go back to normal. Oh no. And this is where the movie gets completely ruined. Everything in Luca's world becomes frozen and glitched out. He calls for Bianca, she doesn't respond. A glitched figure appears from the gates in Naderia, commenting on the craftsmanship of the Zenithian sword before destroying it. He then shows Luca the reality of the world that he is living in. The figure reveals to Luca that nothing he has experienced is real. It's only been a few hours in the real world. That this entire adventure is actually taking place in an immersive virtual reality version of the game Dragon Quest V, where you basically go into a big sphere and your memories are removed so you can be truly immersed in the game. And someone managed to hack into the machine that Luca was using and input a virus into the code for Nimzo's character, so the ending of the game could be ruined for the player. Because the hacker doesn't like Dragon Quest, I guess. The hacker actually leaves a message for Luca, and it's just, grow up, loser. The virus attempts to send Luca back to the real world, where he regains his memory of a few minutes before the game began. This shows Luca actually creating parameters for his playthrough that explains some of the weird occurrences that happen in the movie, such as wanting to fight robots, so that's why they were thrown in to guard the fairies, and wanting to marry Nira instead of Bianca, so that's why Luca's dream tries to sway him towards Nira as opposed to Bianca. This scene also suggests that Luca's not even our protagonist's real name, just the name he's chosen for every Dragon Quest game he's ever played. Despite this revelation, Luca resists the virus attempt to knock him out of the game. We get a flashback to Luca receiving a copy of Dragon Quest V for his birthday as a child, and him playing the game throughout many stages of his life. Then he goes on this long rant that basically bubbles down to, well, the time I spent playing this game was very real to me, so even though it's fiction, it's a different kind of reality. Then Gertrude comes out of nowhere, speaking with a very deep voice, all of a sudden, stating that he's actually an antivirus program that was put into the game in case of this very thing happening. Oh, the legs on this movie are just nowhere to be found at this point. Gertrude gives Luca a vaccine, which is in the shape of Erdrick's sword from Dragon Quest 1 to... It's the main Dragon Quest sword, basically. Luca uses the sword to defeat the virus, and he rescues the game. The game restores itself, and everyone picks up as if Luca just defeated the final boss of Dragon Quest V, Nimzo.
I've never faced anyone with such power.
Oh, dude, really... It's just so cheesy and lame. Everyone celebrates the victory and parts ways. The gang make their way home to Wheelbrook. We get a closing monologue from Luca basically saying that when they return home, the game will end and Luca will be brought back to reality. None of this having been real. But that's okay because it's real to me, it's real to me, it's real to me, it's real to me. This is just so grim. You just found out your wife and child aren't real. That your family isn't real. Your mom, your dad, your friendships, your victories, your traumas, none of it was real. And then the film just rubs salt in the wounds with lines like, oh, we can watch Alice grow up together. What is this trying to achieve? The film ends with the gang watching fireworks over Wheelbrook, and Luca saying, this is as real as it gets. I was the hero. And then we get a title card, Dragon Quest, Your Story. Get it, guys? Because we're meant to relate to it. It's our story with the game. Where do I even begin with this? First of all, my story with Dragon Quest was not receiving Dragon Quest V for my birthday in 1992. I wasn't even a twinkle in my father's eye in 1992. Also, because Dragon Quest V wasn't even released in Ireland until like 2009, which also was a recession year. Is Dragon Quest V just a harbinger of economic crisis? My story with Dragon Quest is seeing Jedward do the ads for Dragon Quest 9 on RTE in like 2010, then begging my parents to get the game for me for Christmas, which they did. That sparked a almost 15-year hyperfixation that I will never break away from. But you know, it's not cocaine, so I get away with it. What I'm saying is, I could write a book on using Dragon Quest as a form of escapism. I have been using Dragon Quest as a form of escapism for the past month. I've been really sick, I've been in and out of hospital. For me, Dragon Quest is a huge part of my life, and it's my thing. Dragon Quest has always been there for me through difficult times in my life since I was 10 years old. I'm 25 this year, and it still continues to comfort me during any difficult or trialing period of my life. It has been and it always will be my comfort blanket. But this movie did not make me feel good about that at all. It made me feel kind of pathetic. Like, the sentiment is there, okay. I will admit the first time I watched this movie, I actually kind of liked the ending. I found it pretty endearing. But the more I rewatched the movie, the more icky I felt about it. Especially that last scene where everyone's celebrating and talking about the future, and you're just sitting there knowing that, no, you're not going to see Alice grow up. You're not going to live a life together. It's not real, and not even in the context of the movie is it real. It's also just a kick in the teeth that after going through that whole story, we don't even see Grandmaster Nimzo. Like, that fight is pretty huge in the video game. It's pretty epic, and we don't even see him. This film's adaptation overall was pretty sloppy at the beginning, and then I think it finds its footing and becomes a really enjoyable watch, and then it just spits in your face. I don't know. It's hard for me to say much else about it. I'm just surprised this ending got approved of at all. Like, I can only assume they believed viewers would be so drunk off nostalgia that when this movie came out, they'd see it as more of a love note to fans rather than a sad dose of reality. I really don't want to end this on a negative note, though. So let me talk about the things I really loved about this movie. It perfectly captures that Dragon Quest silliness. The characters all feel perfectly translated into their animated versions. The combat is so well adapted, the visuals are stunning, and I just love all the nods and references to other games in the franchise, as well as the use of music not just from Dragon Quest V, but from all of the Dragon Quest games. There's just so many Easter eggs I discovered while rewatching this movie, and I find new ones every time I rewatch this movie. And even with the terrible ending, I still consider this movie a nice little comfort watch, because it still holds all of the essence of Dragon Quest within it. I think I speak for a lot of Dragon Quest fans when I say that the final message of the movie, while somber, is still a point worth saying at the right time and place. Yeah, objectively, these games are not real life. They're far-fetched, ridiculous, and they're highly formulaic fairy tales. But they've been so successfully that way for the past 40 years. I think one of the main reasons so many Dragon Quest fans find such an escape and comfort in these games is because of this Dragon Quest formula that they just keep re-implementing in each game. There is a big problem, but you are the hero. Everything is always going to be okay in the end, and that has never let me down. And I like that. So to conclude, this movie sucks and I love it. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. I'm hoping to make a lot more Dragon Quest content. Doing this for me and people in the Dragon Quest community who just want to consume more content on Dragon Quest, because there isn't a whole lot of it out there. I would like a lot more. I love long form content, I love video essays, and there's not a whole lot of that, especially in the Dragon Quest series. So I'm hoping to make more content like that. I'm currently working on a Dragon Quest 8 deep dive, which is going to be an awful lot longer, but it'll be a bit fun. And there's going to be a part 2 to this video that's going to discuss all the differences between the movie and the game. So if that is kind of the thing that you like to watch, so stick around, subscribe. My name's Grania. I love Dragon Quest.